unless the president himself is guilty of organizing a caucus inside the parliament, that is a non-starter. Okay? So yes, I lay the responsibility for this on the government. Of course, the opposition is so reckless in this matter. Let's go back to the fact that the Interception of Communication Act was an initiative of the PP government and supported by the PNM. And that law is the one that is responsible for a lot of the anxiety that is now being played out in the SSA amendment bill. Okay, all the spying thing is not on the SSA Act. It is the interception of communication, and that is where we still have problems, but it is law.
And that is where we're going to continue on that. I think one parts of the area for the urgency we are seeing here is a combination of the pressure being put on offshore banking, disclosures coming out, including the Panama Papers. Not only that, the whole question of terrorists and how many men coming out of children, that stuff like that. But we'll get into the meat of that. You make a very good point there, is that the government, and I think Mr. Daly also referred to it, the Attorney General somewhat succeeded in differentiating between the two acts and making it clear that the communication issue is something that has nothing to do with what they're discussing here. Even though Mr. Daly said he was not in his column today, he was not able to take away his passion from his presentation. But Rhoda, the question to you is this. Up front, is this a failure on the government side to articulate what was involved here, which would have blunted the opposition machinations that we had to endure in the last week?
I'm sitting here and I'm a little bit on the amused side. So let me say this. You had several weeks of debate going on. You had the government referring to this as the SSA bill. You had the opposition referring to it as the spy bill. And you had the media repeating what the opposition was saying as the spy bill. Now, I think the government has some responsibility to bear, certainly for not deploying its communications better to counter the whole misnaming of the thing as spy bill, and of course in not making efforts to further clarify. But I also want to add here that you had Parliament, right, the corporate side, not the House where people are sitting, Parliament putting out the bill, putting out synopses of the bill, letting you know these are the key things that are being addressed, putting out lots of information about it. So essentially there was information out there that the public could access, right? If it wanted further information about the bill, but they would have had to go onto an online platform or go onto the Parliament channel to be able to access that information. So we have a situation here where the information is being prepared for us by the Parliament, which is independent of either opposition or government senators, is still not being properly accessed or regularly accessed by the population. You also have a situation where the information source that is regularly accessed by the population, that is media, print, radio, television, doing its level best to not step up to the challenge. Right? It's doing a very good job of not stepping up to the challenge. So when I get up as a thinking person and I am seeing spy bill, on hearing it on radio, seeing it being repeated on television, seeing it being put in print media, I have to stop and ask myself, so which reporter or which editor is stopping and questioning this? That didn't happen. And so that is where the government needed to step in and indicate, okay, here's what. This hasn't been done, that hasn't been done. This needs clarification. I agree with Martin that Faris was pretty vehement when he did his wrapping up the other night, but I think it was as a result of speech after speech after speech of hearing the thing being referred to as the spy bill. And I kept thinking when I was listening to the debate myself, but it's not the Interception of Communications Act that is being dissected here. It is the SSA amendment. So why are members of the opposition and even members of the independent bench consistently talking about it as if it's the Interception bill? And to me, as far as I am concerned, the responsibility has to fall on three sets of shoulders here. Government to some extent, opposition, and media, right?
And the independence.
Yes, no, and I agree with you there, and the independence. But for me, with the independence, that would have happened like sometime this week when they started up with their foolishness. But prior to this week, it was all over the media as spy bill. And I kept thinking to myself, but this is disingenuous to the point of being dishonest. And there is only so much the government can do in terms of clarifying these things in public. They have to get onto the media, or they have to deploy their media resources. And then what we're going to hear? We're going to hear propaganda. We're going to hear propaganda state. Right?
But
and
I
so
don't know if the government has any media resources.
no,
Every time something happens,
it's certainly not
they're
using
flat-footed.
CNMG. It's not using CNMG, and I don't know that their media people are quick enough on the draw to be able to respond to these things.
But you started off by talking. Somebody talked about what was the agenda. Now the independents are not supposed to have an agenda. The minute they have an agenda, or they act in some kind of collective way, then we begin to have a problem, because then they are going to sing to a particular script. And I just felt that this was all this business about protocol and who should meet with who and all of this. I am very, very concerned that the independents as a group are being perceived as having an agenda. That is not good for the health of the parliament. It's not good for the political health of the country. And I hope that the president will not take the basket that he has some kind of power to withhold assent to this legislation, particularly because it relates back to a piece of legislation that was passed by a special majority after consultation, in which I mentioned before Sunity joined us. The Law Association took part. Even though I was the president at the time, I just ceased being president, but I attended the consultation at which the PNM, the PP, and the Law Association were all present in one room. So we have to be very careful not to give the president the wrong basket. And these independents have to detach themselves from having any kind of collective spokesman. That's not what they're there for.
I want to add something to what Martin is saying here. I'm not sure when information became a partisan thing. I'm not for the life of me, I'm not understanding how you could have a situation where the government has said, okay, let us meet. Now, what I would not have done was have it be opposition meet and an independent meet. I would have had all of the senators meet, right? And you answer questions, you field whatever it is you need to field by way of questions and information, and put the information out there. And if I was an independent senator or even an opposition senator, I would not have denied myself the opportunity to sit down face to face with the government legislators and ask them the pertinent questions and put forward the pertinent amendments. So I am extremely disappointed in the slate of independent senators that decided they were not going to meet with the government. I don't know that any piece of information in this country have a party logo attached to it.
And you get the chance to talk with the technocrats. These are the people who put this together.
You get to speak to them.
Clarity. Martin Daly, Senior Counsel, I want to get back to you in just a moment, but I do want to go to Sunity, because you, in your column today, and as you just articulated, speak to, we're talking about the role of media. It is one thing, Sunity, I know you have often been here, and we thank you, and every time you've been here, you've spoken about the quality of journalists. And that is given, as you said. My question may even been rhetorical, because I know how you feel on this. There is a question, however. The journalists can do what they want because they are the young group coming in. Maybe they're not trained sufficiently. But I would expect that the editors who look at the stuff before it goes out would be of some level of experience and acumen that they can just say, this is not going this way. This is not the perspective. What has happened to these so-called learned people who are occupying the chairs as editors then?
Well, you're clearly out of touch with the media, the state of the media. Because the reason I put the blame so much on the shoulders of the government is that we are talking in a hypothetical sense when we talk about the media's responsibility. Does it have the capability? Is it objective? We have a lot of questions. If I'm the government and I understand Trinidad and Tobago right now, I will understand the absolute primacy of negotiating the information environment in a way that reaches people. And in that, I am not going to trust that I can have a press conference and put it there, or lay a document in there and expect people to understand it. There is so much that is disturbing about the media environment. And to talk about the media as an institution in some pure form that knows its responsibility, that even if it knows it, it is capable of fulfilling it, is to believe in some, pure notion. of course, the responsibility of the editors. First of all, reporters would not be going out there and coming back and talking about a spy bill if they had a brief, if they were simply told, before you go and talk to anybody, read the bill. I would like to ask even how many people who were reading that bill, reporting on the bill, read the bill. Okay, it was. I was shocked, just as Rhoda was, when I actually read the bill and tried to square the bill with the discussion that was going on.
Yes.
I have a question, Martin. The
Yes.
SSA Act of 95.
Yes.
Is that the I know the Interception Act came on with a special majority.
In
The
2010.
SSA
In 2010.
in 2010,
yeah,
but the
2010.
SSA Act, did that require a special majority?
Well, I don't know the answer, but I do.
Because I don't
Because I
think
don't
so. I
remember
think it's
all
the
of
establishment
all
of the
contents.
right. I don't think the SSA Act was in any way an encroachment on the Constitution, the Interception of
Probably not.
Communication. Now, if the SSA Act is to be amended, why is if this is an amendment bill, why is there a discussion about special majority for this? If the initial act,
All part of the obfuscation of the
Well,
bill.
and-
It was
Well,
all
I
part
don't
of the
think that's been
obfuscation.
properly analyzed.
Exactly,
either.
and
I am simply pointing out.
because I
that
think people are
it's fact.
talking. I think
Yes,
this is
yes,
how
we're
the
talking
Interception of Communication Act has been thrown in the mix, and the Parliament and the public, therefore, by extension, assumed really that the interception. What they were debating was the interception of
And it
communication.
was
Oh,
not,
yes,
and
they
it
went
was
back
not
to
that.
debating
So
that
even
because they
Martin
were
mentioned, that
brilliantly
bill.
conned into that. They were
Yes,
conned into
exactly. The,
debating that.
the country was conned into that, and it didn't happen alone. But the thing, I want to respond to Sunity's comments here. It was clear once you got around to reading the bill that it was about 6 or 7 amendments being done to the SSA to the SSA Act. And those 6 or 7 amendments were all tied into expanding the definition of crime.
That's right.
That is what it was. It was when you looked at it, the first thing, clause 3, was to say what exactly was serious crime, and it listed a whole bunch of serious crimes. Then you went to a number of other clauses that said removing this word and instead putting in
That's
serious
right.
crime, and serious crime is defined as what you have in clause 3. And then there were 1 or 2 other things to deal with the use of words like combat instead of fight, or fight instead of
That's
combat,
right.
those kinds of
That's
things.
right.
So when you sat down and you read, listen, you cannot begin to understand the level of shock that was going through my system when I listened to the debate 2 or 3 nights ago, because I said to myself, we have lawyers sitting on that independent bench. We have lawyers sitting on that opposition bench. So this should be easy kai for them. I am a regular citizen, right? And I am reading this and making more sense of this than people with silk. Nah, man. Nah.
Clause 3 included some areas now under the agencies: homicide, treason, terrorist financing, cybercrime, chemical, biological, nuclear weapons, money laundering, weapons of mass destruction, trafficking in children and persons, gangs, illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, and also chemicals, corruption, and offenses that carry a penalty not less than 5
Well,
years.
that last one is problematical. I mean, at the time
I
of the
think so.
Interception Communications Bill, where what they were doing was aligning the definition of serious crimes with the definition of offense in the Interception of Communications Act. But it's quite wrong to have that wrap-up category of offenses carrying more than 5 years.
Exactly.
carrying
And I
more
thought
than
that
5
was
years.
going to be
And
ratified.
really, what the Parliament should have been doing, and I'm not going to identify who, should have been, if they wanted to reopen something, that was the thing to reopen,
Yes,
because
correct.
there's very little justification for having that level of interception for relatively small crimes. Yes,
Yes.
there are some important crimes that carry more than 5 years, but that is much too broad a category, and that is the potential for abuse of power, that
Agreed.
lower category.
Well,